Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining from. Welcome to Open Source Friday. Friends, it's been a week. I know we are so late. Let me tell you what happened. You're like, just get to it. Yeah, your girl struggles with time zones. I happen to be on the West Coast because this was the week of Microsoft Build. If you came to Build, I hope you were as excited. There were a lot of open source news at Microsoft Build, which sounds funny to say, but it was true. It's true. So I'll have to touch on some of that, but I want to get right to our guest, who is an absolute star. Um, was in my time zone, my usual time zone, East Coast, as of like a few hours, and is now back in Europe. And I can't believe that he's actually willing to come on now, like being exhausted. So if you're here, welcome. This is Open Source Friday, the show where we get an opportunity to chat to maintainers about the projects, to the contributors about the projects. And today we have an incredible guest with us. He's not only a lead of a product project that is huge, but also a GitHub star and just overall awesome person. Our guest today is Daniel, who leads the Nuxt core team. He's been a CTO of a SaaS startup. He's been a founder, but truly his contribution to open source and the Vue.js and Nuxt ecosystems are just incredible. He's a major keynote speaker. International was just in Tampa, speaking of UConf, and just has an incredible experience. And we are so grateful that he's joining us all the way from Scotland. Unbelievably jet lag, and I don't even know how you're doing this right now, Daniel. I would have called me and been like, "Yeah, no, welcome."
Thank you. It's really nice to be here, and I don't think I can beat that. I can't think of a more glowing introduction. Thank you very much.
So first of all, you were, we would have been on the same time zone. We should have done this yesterday, but then it would have been Thursday. But now
we
it's
I would have like gorgeous sunshine in the background. I'd probably be sort of mopping my brow as the Tampa heat beat down upon me, something like that. But yes, we
big
should.
change.
Yeah.
Big change from Tampa to where you're back home now. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I have to ask because I saw so many snippets about your keynote at the conference, and there were some major announcements that you share. So, first of all, we can start from the beginning. I do want to know how you became part of the core team. And this is your full-time gig, right? Like you are full-time open source.
I am. So it's incredible. Like I still pinch myself, but I'm full time open source. That's what I wake up in the morning and I do open source, and that's what I do. So
That's, I mean, how does one get to that point? I'm sure there are people that are watching right now that are like, maybe that would be my ideal career path.
well, do you know I'm not sure I'm that helpful because it was never something I set out to do or wanted to achieve. I was involved in open source because I really enjoy being involved in open source, and actually I do think that is probably a better for your own sanity, because I think that there's probably very few situations where you can end up being full-time open source. And if you're doing something that you enjoy because you enjoy it, then it's fulfilling in and of itself, whether or not it's a stepping stone somewhere else. The journey is the reason to do it. And so yeah. So for me, I would be doing this as much as I could, whether or not I was able to devote all my time to it.
I love it. How long have you been part of the, or leading the core team rather?
I've been leading the core team for about 2 years now, and I've been on the core team for, I think, 4 years. And before that, I was a member of the community who was helping out as best I could. Probably sometimes, maybe not always perfectly, but doing my best. I think it was really, I would have problems or bugs, or I would need help. Went online, found Discord, GitHub issues, asked questions, and then while I was getting my answers, noticed that I could help other people who were asking different questions that I happen to know the answers to. And it's so rewarding to be part of a community like that. That on the one hand, you're getting a lot from, because you're getting the help and support that you need, but then you also get the chance to give back. And so I basically logged on and never logged off. But yeah, so it's not been that long, because I don't think it was even that much further back than that I really started getting into JavaScript. So I think my open source career, and definitely my front end JavaScript career, is probably quite short compared to some folk around.
Well, that is, I mean, it's impressive, and I'm glad that you're able to do it, like full time. I'm sure the project is very glad that you're able to do it full time as well. And in the, what is it, 2 years that you've been leading the core team, I don't know, a lot has changed. But thanks for the great work. I mean, that's just amazing. So let's talk about the project. Let's talk about what it is that you do. So obviously your role as leadership is a bit different, but I think that as part of leadership, you're also very involved on like the setting the direction, right, for Nuxt.js, um, with the community's help, of course. But high level, like when you join, we started actively contributing till now, like the framework's vision, I feel like, has it changed for you? um have you, now that you're part of the leadership who actually steers the project, have you changed a bit the way that you thought about it before? And then we can get into everything that you announced, because I think folks are probably dying to know what's new for uh for Nux.
So I think I think what I've always appreciated about Nuxt, and I mean, I don't know, people might not know what it is, but it's a framework for building full stack web applications. It has Vue on the back end, or on the front end. Nitro is a new server rendering framework we actually built for Nuxt, but which now powers TanStack Start, Solid Start, Analog.js, and the vision is really that it's there for everyone. Like quite a lot of libraries that we built as part of building Nuxt. And one of the things that I think Nuxt is about is bringing great developer experience to the table. So you should be able to get started. We call it a progressive framework. So the idea is you should be able to get started with nothing, with little experience, or with very little configuration, if none, ideally. And that you should also be able to deploy to your choice of provider with no configuration too. And then that should actually scale all the way up to enterprise, or big agency, or wherever you need to go, so you can fully customize it. And the question about where we're going, I can point to some things that I've definitely changed. So we have a release schedule now, for example, that is whenever you ship something, you obviously have to decide which is going to be fixed, the scope or the time, like the schedule. And I really do believe that. And I think it's important with an open source project like Nuxt that we stick to the time. So we ship our minors every month or so. We ship our patch fixes, our hot fixes every week or so. And our aim has been to ship a major every year or so. We're actually a little bit delayed on that. Well, I guess we're still in the or so. But that's something I think that probably I changed. But if you're asking about the vision for the project, my vision, and I think the vision of the project from the beginning, because I didn't create it, of course, has been that Nuxt exists to solve the problems that developers face, and it exists to bring best practice into our experience. So when we're building websites, it should be there to guide us, even if we don't know what that best practice is. And so if you ask me where Nuxt is going in 10 years' time, I can only answer that by asking, where is the web going in 10
Ah,
years' time? Because what problems we face as developers in a year or 2 years, I mean, I can predict them to some extent. I'm sure you can. But maybe we also can't. Maybe there are things we totally don't see. And it would be I think, a big mistake for us as a framework to pin ourselves to a particular direction,
mhm.
independent of what developers are facing. If developers are not facing problems, Nuxt shouldn't exist. It's not. It doesn't have merit in and of itself. It exists because we need we're facing trouble. Like we need it. We want to smooth our path. We want to decrease friction. We want to become more effortless at achieving what we want to achieve. So obviously there are new challenges, for example, that I wouldn't have predicted 2 years ago in terms of LLMs and AI,
Right.
and thinking about how frameworks fit into those. There are other challenges too, and opportunities with evergreen browsers and incredible progression on features in CSS and even on JavaScript. We see there are new opportunities with JavaScript runtimes, whether that's Bun or Dino or the workers runtime on Cloudflare. I mean, I'm so delighted to see the work of Winter TC and more stuff. So I mean, that there's so much exciting stuff happening that yeah, I'm really pleased. But I think you almost have to discover where you're going as things unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it it depends. It depends on where the web and where developers are going. So happy you mentioned AI because I know that this is obviously top of mind for everyone. I think did you have there was a part of your talk and I didn't quite catch all the details because I was also here doing this conference. I feel like this week they lined up like four different conferences all together at the same time. It was a busy week on tech. But was it were you coding? Were you using that? There was a chat app. I can't remember. There was something that you did on stage that was it had to do with artificial intelligence. And please correct me if I call that message completely wrong. Um, but so top of mind for the project, right? Like how you now have to plan for AI enabled apps in the context of any platform, really. And how we're seeing that integration of AI that's just going to shape the future of applications. But what about Nux in terms of AI? Like for, I know as a project, not sure if you're actually integrating a lot of these tools within the project itself and then anything that you can add as to what you, especially coming from BrewConf just now, what's the mood? Like, what are we thinking in terms of like AI emerging technologies, and then I guess sticking to, in essence, why the frameworks exist to begin with to make our lives easier.
I think, well, one, I'm incredibly impressed that you managed to catch what I was talking about, even what was on one of my slides while you were also at Microsoft Build. I am very impressed. So one of the things that I was talking about was, well, it was exactly this. So how we're going to tackle or solve the problems that devs are facing in an age of LLMs. So some of
Mhm.
those problems are, I mean, we've always had a problem, a solution being, can you make a framework intelligible? So what is its API like? Is it easy to learn? Is it intuitive? Does it make sense? And I actually think that these are, we should probably think of these as features and bugs. If your API is hard to understand, then that is a bug in the API. Even if we don't think necessarily the code might work perfectly, but you can't always be telling people that the problem is themselves. Sometimes it really matters how you design something. And now we have the additional question of not just how do you design something for a developer to make it easy to understand. And by the way, I should say that I was talking to someone yesterday, and she said, "Oh, you know, she said I don't really feel like I could contribute. I read the docs and I realize that I've made a mistake."
Mm.
And that's absolutely not the case, because if you're reading the docs and you're making a mistake, it's a bug in the docs. because the docs exist to prevent that kind of thing. And so if they're not clear enough, if they're not guiding you, then that is something we need to fix at the framework level. It's not your fault. Anyway, but now we have this additional question of where is what is intelligibility when we are not just when developers are not just coding necessarily by ourselves, but we have tools that augment our abilities to code. And what is going to enable those tools to be performing at their most effective? So obviously I'm thinking of LLMs, although there are many tools that I would reach for, and LLMs would be, one in the toolbox. And so we're doing things like we have a Nuxt MCP server, so mcp.nuxt.com, which you can add to your setup. Or we have actually, this is quite interesting, we actually have a Nuxt dev tools. If I get a chance, I'll show you what it looks like. But it's sort of built into your project. So when you start your dev server, in the page is actually a dev tools, which tells you about your project. It tells you about the server routes. It tells you about the routing structure. It tells you about the modules that you have installed. It gives you documentation. It gives you help. You can click on any bit of the page and it will actually take you to the code in your IDE and show you where that bit came from. So there's lots of things it can do, and many more than that. And Anthony Fu, one of the core team members of Nuxt, is actually building an MCP server that is customized to your project. So it's actually you're like running when you start your project, your own MCP server starts up, and you
That
can
is wild.
then expose that to whatever again IDE or tool you're using, and now it knows not just generic Nuxt context; it actually knows specific context, your specific context, much more than you could get necessarily just from being able to, read the context of a code workspace. And it can do stuff like install a Nuxt module into your project to add an integration with something without needing to fire a tool call. So there are a lot of interesting things there. And obviously, we've also done stuff like we're experimentally adopting the LLM's text format to expose our documentation, because again, a lot of it is about I think in that case, the sort of exposing documentation as text or markdown allows for better use of compute rather than having to translate a fully rendered web page into something that can be tokenized. So we're trying, but I mean, exactly what that's going to look like is, it's open.
This is amazing. I did not know the MCP server in the project. So it's out now, right? Like, is it on a preview?
It is public. So there's a Git repo, antfoo/Nuxt MCP, Nuxt-MCP. I'll drop a link in chat. But it's definitely experimental and under development. There we go.
Let me share this with folks who are watching this right now. That is amazing. Okay, all right, definitely MCP1. Like, it's incredible how we're just going all in, and now have major frameworks including it out of box. That's incredible. I do have a question from Jan, and thank you, Jan, for the question. And I think you touched a bit on this, right? But about MCP, is it here to stay, or is it just a tool to bridge the generally small context window of current LLMs? What do you think, Daniel?
I think it's here to stay. And I think part of the thing is that you see how quickly it was adopted across competing providers. And I think one of the reasons is because it allows tool calls, not just to get information, but also to do things. I also think, by the way, that another thing that is increasingly important is good APIs, good old-fashioned APIs. So I've been doing quite a lot of work to build my own personal agent, just to make my life sort of easier and better. And where there's an API, there's a connection. You can easily add an API to an MCP server as a tool, expose it to do something, enable sort of information flow. And I think LLMs are fantastic at the fuzzy.
Hmm.
APIs are great because they exist. They're not fuzzy. You know exactly what's going to happen unless there's a bug. But LLMs are really good at bridging the fuzzy, so that you have two APIs. They don't talk. There's no actual way for them to do anything. But you can stick this fuzzy blob in between, and it can actually enable those APIs to connect in a way that they might not have done before, and directed in a way by you. So you could sort of communicate your intent, and it's so much fun. So I mean, for example, I have a little workflow that before I leave out for a trip, it just it's on a time trigger. So based on just what's in my diary, if I have something in my diary that's not in Scotland,
Hmm.
it will pull from an API the 5-day weather forecast of that location.
Oh, cool.
And then it will draft a couple of paragraphs of what I need to pack. And it would message me that on Telegram. So basically, it's super easy for me to do that. But now it's something I don't have to think about. So it reduces your cognitive load a little bit, just to get a nice little message saying, hey, it's going to be minimum of 31 degrees in Tampa over the next 5 days. Probably want to bring a swimsuit as well because the humidity is pretty high. And don't forget to pack the sunscreen. That it's a nice thing to have. And but that's all about connecting APIs and connecting with a little bit of intelligence. So I've got a little bit astray from what Jan Niklas was asking, but I think yes, I think MCPs are here to stay because they are a way of connection, and just like Unix, the Unix philosophy connects lots of little utilities together and creates something incredible. Just like sort of any JavaScript library, like you're connecting lots of building blocks. APIs are the same. MCP servers bring that to LLMs. Like, this is my take.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. I love this tool that you created. That is something that's so like, yeah, it's an extra thing that you now is outside of your like load because it's taken care of for you. That's amazing. I think we don't fully um we don't talk about things like this that are actually like so impactful. You know what I mean? Like it's not because it's not a ton of complexity from the project to basically just fire up a call and then make a suggestion. But it saves you time and it makes your life so much easier. Those are the things I'm here for all this tech for, and to make my life easier. That's so cool.
Oh, I've got lots. I could tell you all my workflows. It's fun as you start adding them together and having them then sort of connect. Like
Hmm.
I can on my little Telegram bot, I can say, hey, I have a new idea for a project. Can you help me brainstorm ideas for NPM packages that aren't already taken? And it will be able to check on NPM whether those are taken or not.
Oh,
And then when I say, okay, that one's great, could you just quickly reserve it for me? It can actually go and create a package on NPM and just publish it so the name is reserved.
what?
And isn't that cool? Like it's sort of, yeah, and it's just all little tiny building blocks that I'm putting together, um, perfectly tailored for me. It's not something that is shareable really with anyone else. I gave a talk a few weeks ago about building a personal CLI. And it's absolutely the same thing, whether or not you're using LLMs or not, but just like little things that, I'm an oyster making a little pearl around any bits of grit in my shell. And I like, what are the ways that I can make a little cozy, make my world a little bit cozier?
Hmm.
Feels like that more than some tool that's going to work for everybody in exactly the same way is one of the really nice things about LLMs. Like you can actually make something that is just for you, um, perfectly tailored.
That's so cool. That is so cool. You have to do a talk about all this, all of your personal hacks, like productivity hacks and all the workflows. I don't know if you've done it already. If you've done it, please share the link. And if you haven't, please do it so that we can all hack our lives like that. Because that just sounds awesome, awesome. Um, you touched a little bit about like this NPM mentioning of reserving the package and stuff, and it just made me think of like your community and modules, because Nuxt modules are a big part of the framework, and they're like created by the community. But I had to remember that one of the very first conferences I went to when I first joined GitHub was BuConf in Tampa, like in 20, my gosh, 18, maybe
Really?
18. And yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. And it was actually, you had this black fedoras that were sort of like the swag, and it had the green little, and I have a picture of myself in front of the entrance. It just came to me. I'm like, but one of the reasons I mentioned it, because during that time I was also kind of get my footing into open source. And I remember thinking how this community was so welcoming. And later that year, I went on to do a talk about getting started in open source, or using it to grow your career or something. I don't remember the context, but the Vue community was one of the community. Next community was one of the communities that I said, these are communities that are welcoming and you should like check them out. Obviously, a big part of the growth of the framework kind of lays into that community participation. Like, I love for you to share a little bit about how you encourage. You have one of the most diverse looking contributor community that there are, for especially for JavaScript frameworks. Like there's definitely and it just seems lovely. It seems like it's a really nice, like a nice cozy oyster, like you said. It's a nice little space. Um, if you could share just a little bit about like the role of the community and the growth of the framework, and then you're fresh off this conference where I'm sure you got to see a lot of those folks in person. Just how you keep people getting like being nice and excited to contribute. Like I think we can learn a lot from that.
I think the Nuxt community, the Vue community, is really warm and welcoming, and that was one of the reasons that I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's especially. I mean, it's so important, isn't it? Because the it makes the difference between a place where you have to be and a place where you want to be.
Mm,
I think I regard there are ways of drawing lines for communities, and defining who's in and who's out, who's part of a community and who isn't. And one way, of course, is you draw lines. You put fences up and you say, like, okay, if you're in here, you're part, but actually, if you're out there, you're not. I like to think that the kind of community I want to be there for us in Nuxt is a center-bounded community. So it's a community without walls. And the thing that brings people together isn't boundaries. So I'm told, I don't know how true this is, that in Australia, cattle ranchers do not have fences, and they don't need them
mm-hmm.
because the cows come back for the food and the water. And so you have this community that is drawn together, not by having an they're out and we're in, but drawn together because it's a place they want to be. And that is the kind of community that I want to be a part of, one that is actually worthwhile in and of itself. And I think the Nuxt community, and one of the things I love about it, is that we are inclusive, we are diverse, we value equity, and these are things that are deeply rooted in what makes a just and a good community. And yeah, I'm very, very proud of that. Not that I am responsible for it, but I'm proud on behalf of the community for what they make it. And I think thinking more broadly, like, I mean, as developers, actually as open source contributors, it's incredibly stressful because there you are, you're taking your idea, maybe to fix a bug or build a feature, and you're
Mm-hmm.
bringing it forward into the open where anyone can see it, where smart people can see it, where people you admire can see it. And that's really scary. And I think one of the most important things that you can have is an acknowledgement that we all find that difficult, that we all have our own insecurities, and that it's just a safe place to contribute and share things, and that this is a place of welcome. And honestly, I think we are so much better for it. I mean, I think any group of people is better for it. Like having different points of view, different ideas. I mean, there are all the time features that, I mean, if you think one of the jobs of Nuxt, of many frameworks, is to make developers' lives better.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do that, you have to understand what the pain points are. And by default, my understanding is going to be very targeted to my pain points. And yes, I do need to do that. Like, take your own experience first and foremost as a thing. We can absolutely solve your own pain points. I encourage everybody to do that. Solve your own pain points. But if you don't have a diverse group of people, if you don't have people of different viewpoints, what you end up with is a really two-dimensional set of features, a two-dimensional set of pain points being solved. And you end up with a framework which is not as good as it could be if you had people who had different points of view. I don't think it's not an optional extra. It's not some kind of, ooh, this is a nice thing. I think it's really essential if you really want to have an open source project that is useful for people. So I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Sorry about
No, not at all. No, no, no. And you brought up a really valid point, and thanks for actually affirming that you should take your own experience. I think a lot of what the open source is people that had problem and wanted to fix their problem first, right? And then great projects are born. So thank you for acknowledging that we should own our experience, but also be open to looking at it from everyone's lens and being open to that. That's what makes projects great. I mean, and Nux is definitely stands out. It stands out for that. I think one thing that, and I don't know if it's a contrarian opinion, but like when folks are starting to build and they're thinking about what framework they're gonna use, like I, for one, I'm a person that thinks about the community. Things like the documentation. You do a beautiful job with your documentation and your blogs and the way that your change log, sort of like the whole. It's a nice flow. Like those things are they're important, right? Like and having a community that's gonna be open, supportive, and inclusive, that matters to me too. So I appreciate you all. Like stay amazing. Next folks, stay amazing. Let's talk a little bit about what was new. That I don't know if there were any specific announcements that you did last week, or any things that are coming up for Nux that you're able to share. I think for the folks that might be interested in a bit of like where, I guess, where the tech is going, and any particular focus of improvements that you're thinking, or anything that you announce. If you could share, that'd be great.
Well, there is one announcement. In fact, I published a package live on stage, but
You did? What? That
I
must
did,
have
I
been
did.
another one of my. Okay, that's amazing.
But it was actually well. So last year we published a package called Nuxt Fonts, and Nuxt Fonts is it's a zero config font integration. So if you use a custom web font in your app, so you just would say like font family Poppins or something like that, and Nuxt Font spots that. I created a library called Unifont that pulls down from a range of about 6 font CDNs like Google Fonts, Bunny, FontShare, and so on. Finds the sources of the font, pulls them down, downloads them into your project, so there's no third-party requests, no
Wow.
prefetch. It calculates the metrics of the font and applies that via CSS to the fallback. So like if you have Arial or something in your browser, Arial will be smushed into the shape of the custom web font. That takes very little CSS and it reduces layout shift. And then all of that is done automatically so that when you then deploy your project, the web font is just there. So you've had to do no configuration, and everything is as best practice as we know. And that has been phenomenal, honestly. It's been really lovely to see that be valued and for people to enjoy it. And it really, I know I've made it, but I do feel it's magic. Like it feels nice. So a couple of projects were inspired by this. So Astro recently released Astro Fonts, which uses Unifont under the hood and tries to do the similar kind of thing for Astro.
Right.
And then the Quick team came to me. They said, "Hey, would you mind if we built something similar for Quick?" And I said, "Go ahead. I would love that." And so they went away and they were building, and they came back and they said, "Daniel, We built something that would work for Quick, but actually it's mostly the same code as Nuxt fonts. What do you think? Shall we just create a new library that works for everybody? And so, and they produced this proof of concept. They had tests of like 6 or 7 Vite-based projects. So I refactored Nuxt fonts entirely. There's now a new library called Fontless, which brings Nuxt fonts to any Vite-based project. And it's only on 0.0.2, because I did just release it a few days ago. So I'm sure there are some bugs, but our test suite is passing. And it means you have exactly that same zero config experience I talked about, but not just for Nuxt, for plenty of other projects too. So I was really excited to announce that, even though it was not exactly a Nuxt announcement, but that was fun.
That's amazing. I have to find a link to the actual. So the new one is the new library is called Fontless, right? Like
I
FONT.
am so sorry. Yes, I will just pop that link in the. It's called Fontless, but I've popped it in a monorepo because I have a couple of other font-related projects. So the monorepo is actually in Fontaine. Fontaine
Okay.
is the library that I created to do the font layout shift. And I should say, when I created the library, it's based on work from other people. So there's a really good engineer, Katie Hempenius at Google. She came up with the original layout font metric approach. Brilliant. And a colleague of hers, Kara Erickson, who was on the Google Aurora team, drew my attention
Hmm.
to it. And so I basically packaged it up. So I'm trying not to take credit for it, but it's a very cool approach. And so that deals with that layout shift. And then Unifont is another library, which is in a slightly different repo. And we've put Fontless in with Fontaine because at some point there are too many font related repos. we want to sort of reduce the cognitive load. So yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I love this. And you say it's not, it might not be related to the project or what have you, but like all of these things are like for optimization, right? So I think like they're making, like it makes the framework better. Like, so this is all important stuff. Like I love it. I
I
love it.
totally, I totally agree. Like, I think, and this has been a thing that we've done with a lot of things, because you can, like, I think you have a choice as an open source maintainer. Actually, not just as an open source maintainer. Are you going to build your own empire? Like, do you see this as a zero-sum game between you're going to use my framework or you're going to use the other framework, and then you have framework wars, and that is also it's unpleasant for lots of reasons.
Hmm.
And also, it's a total waste of time, because as developers, we're artisans, we're craftspeople. We create stuff. We don't define ourselves by our tools. That would be a total waste. Like, we're missing the magic of what we are able to do. Like, it's about making things real. Tools are only good if they enable us to do that, and you definitely don't get into wars over what tools are better. But I think you have this choice. Are you going to build your own empire? So, or are you going to collaborate with other people? And I think you can probably go faster alone, but I think you go farther together with other people. And so for like Fontless, for example, there'll be plenty of people who contribute to that, I imagine, not from Nuxt, from Svelte or from React, and they'll bring their own expertise, their own different points of view, their own needs. And just like a diverse community is good, a diverse pool of contributors from different projects is good too. And I think it will make a better library for sure.
Well, perfectly said. 0 notes, 10 out of 10. There you go, folks. Don't let the framework that you use define you. I love that. There should be no kings here. This is amazing. I think we can have a whole other conversation, a whole hour about that. And listen, I'm all for passion. I think it's exciting to have this level of like you believe in something so much, but we sometimes lose sight of the bigger picture, forget what open source is all about when we get into those sort of there's no kings in the end. All right. There was a question from our audience about perform. We were talking about performance. Oh, um, for some advice. So if you don't mind, Daniel, I think let's get to that. And I'm sorry I didn't even ask you if you wanted to show us something to demo. This has been just such a chill conversation. I just kind of went with it. But let me read Knox's question. about memory issues. And I guess it's often said that is the issues are more likely in your own code. Do you have any hints or tips for memory issues or leaks in large Nuxt applications?
Memory leaks are absolutely one of the most painful things to debug, wherever you're debugging it, because they take a long time to debug and they're often hard to replicate. And depending on the speed of the leak, it's like finding a leak in a bicycle tire. Sometimes you're just like, this is incredibly difficult. But I would say that you need to reproduce the leak, and you need to do that without creating the leak. Just a note, because I have seen more than one person comment, they're like, I've reproduced this leak. There's this big leak. And you look at their reproduction and they are console logging something in the reproduction. And just to say, because it was not obvious to me the first time I encountered this, if you console log something like an object, you are bringing it into the memory of the node debugger, and it is not cleaned up because it has to be, it's in the, it's in scope. So it's not going to be garbage collected. So you're creating a leak. So don't log anything, because that will create a leak. But yes, reproduce the leak first of all. And then once you can reproduce the leak, you use Chrome DevTool, like the performance recording. Firefox is a great profiler as well. And basically you want to garbage collect before you do any kind of thing. You can hit something a lot of times. Sometimes if it's a small leak or a client-side leak, you can make sure to hit it a distinct number of times, something like 7 or 47, like a number that's memorable. You'll get lists of like allocations, and you can do a diff between 2 times. So if you basically are doing something a certain number of times, you can, for example, diff and look for multiples of that number, for example. That's a very good way to identify things. But however you do it, I try and identify a leak, a reproducible leak, and then delete your app, bits of your app successively. Just cut them out. I mean, not permanently, but just for the sake of reproducing it, until you've gotten the minimal possible bit of your app that still reproduces the memory leak. Honestly, this is so boring, but it is so helpful if you're actually looking to debug something. I've tried more like granular, and I think go nuclear. Just cut out all the pages but one. Can you just reproduce it with that page? Okay.
Wow.
Cut out half of the component, like bisect that page. Half of the components, is the memory leak still there? Half of the ones left. Just keep on going. Okay, there's no components. Okay, so it must be in the script. Okay, let's get rid of that. And just basically, one by one, cut everything down until you have a memory leak. The worst case scenario is if it's not granular. If you just, like, as you're doing that, it just gradually decreases the memory leak. That's a shame. And I probably don't have enough time to fully explain. But this is, in as short as I can think, this is the fastest way to find most memory leaks, like most big memory leaks that you might have introduced into an app. And if you find a one with Nuxt, I would also be very grateful. That would be great.
Amazing. Okay, well, that's really, really, really great advice. So folks can give it a go. Thank you for sharing that. Say it's boring, but somebody's watching this right now and it's like, okay, this is how I'm gonna go about it. This is what I gotta try. Amazing, amazing. What else is coming up for Nuxt? Anything in particular that you're excited about? Anything that's what release is Nuxt on now? Like 3.17, right? No.
Yeah, I mean, you're so good. Honestly, I would just assume that you're like in the Nuxt community with yeah. So we are coming up. We're currently on 3.17, and that means our next minor will ship with a number. We're ready to start work on it.
Oh, nice.
Which will ship with some really interesting things. Like there'll be a wizard. So every individual module will be able to ask questions on upgrade. Or first install to do things like, for example, when you install the ESLint module, it can create the ESLint config for you. When you create the Tailwind module. It can add a Tailwind config, this sort of thing, to make life a little bit better.
Nice.
We also have some cool stuff around lazy hydration, some data fetching things as well. But the really big thing is that we are in the final run-up to Nuxt 4. So this is our major release, which was originally we forecast about a year ago. We've been waiting for a dependency, which is there's lots of great work going on that, but we're looking to release the Nuxt 4 soon. So that's probably what most people are looking forward to. The irony is that version 4 is not about features. So we release features every month. We don't hold them back for a big release. It's not about hype. It's not about FOMO. There's enough of that anyway. So version 4 is about breaking changes. And it's about thoughtful ones. So my main aim for this major release is to communicate. We had a very bad version 3. Version 3 was a very breaking release. It was a total rewrite of the framework. And so my main aim for version 4 is to convince the community that I can be trusted with major releases. So that Nuxt is not going to break people's projects. So although we will have made breaking changes, by definition, they will be opt-in and out, and we have a great migration guide already up. Lots of people are already opting into them. We have a flag where you can do that if you need to test them and try them out. And so that is what a lot of my energy right now is on. And I'm just saying, I can't say any date right now, but stay tuned. Hopefully I'll have numbers for you soon.
Excellent. That's exciting. That's really exciting. And I wish all projects said that, like not holding on the goods, and keeping them all for major releases. Like, thank you. So Mittelblut is the date range is stay tuned. It's coming soon. The team is on it, and they're being very thoughtful because Daniel wants to be trusted with major releases. So to make sure that things don't break your project. So coming soon. That is so super exciting. Daniel, thank you so much. For folks that are watching this, and I mean, you're here maybe because you're already using Nuxt and you love the project, you love the team, you love the community, you love Daniel. But if you're tinkering through and you're looking at frameworks and you're thinking, well, maybe I'll give this a go. Like, I don't know if it's, I mean, it's not about selling, but I just think there is so much noise out there now. Like, what is one thing that, maybe let's frame it this way. For new folks to Nuxt that are just getting started with the framework, like, what do you think is the reason that they're choosing this over any of the other frameworks? Like, what's one thing that you would say, okay, well, start here because
I think a couple of things. So I think one, Vue is a great language, a great UI library for prioritizing the languages of the web. So you write in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so it feels very natural. If you know HTML, it's a great place to get started because you're not having to tweak it slightly. You can just write HTML. I think another reason to get started with Nuxt is the modules ecosystem. So almost anything you can think of, we have over 260 modules maintained by the community. We are a community project. We're not driven. Our agenda is not set by a VC-backed company. Our agenda is set by me and by the community. And that makes a difference. A lot of the features and things that we have in Nuxt that are exciting are built by the community. So everything is customizable. And there's almost always someone who has built something that you might need. That's really helpful. And I think, I think it's also a good place to get help if you have questions about how to make it work. So I'm trying not to just keep on going. But
no, thank you. No, that's hey, that's perfectly said. Perfectly said. I love this, your components, but not modules ecosystem, and the fact that's community driven. Like, that's amazing. That's amazing. You can start taking a look there and seeing the power of that community, and then thanks for giving the shout out to Vue as a language too. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share? Maybe with folks who, um, I don't know, that are watching, or anything in particular that you want to make sure that we call out? And thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I know that we're well past the time that I put in the wrong calendar time.
Only to say that if I have an open diary, so if anyone wants to book a 10-minute call,
Oh,
I
fantastic.
have an open diary, so you can book it at roe.dev/chat. So if you're interested in getting involved in open source, it doesn't have to be anything to do with Nuxt or any of my projects, although you'd be very welcome. But feel free to chat, and particularly if you feel like you are not sure if you would be welcome in a project, or if you feel like your background's a bit different from the other people who are leading it, have a chat. I can offer tips so as far as I can. Anyway, it's there if that's helped anybody.
That is extremely, extremely helpful. Thank you so much. And so generous. Folks, take advantage of that. Grab this link. Grab this link and save it now. And go ahead and hit up. For somebody was offering to have a coffee and have a discussion with you earlier. There you go. This is your opportunity. Grab those 10 minutes and you can have coffee and talk about it. Also, someone wants to know where your cat is, Daniel. I don't know. Is the kitty, is it a
My
cat?
cat, she is out because it's been a sunny day today, so she's outside sunning herself on
Oh,
the wall.
okay. All right. Well, just so you know that your cat has a following as well. Folks were like asking for the cat. Amazing. Well, Daniel, thank you so much. It's been a delightful conversation. I'm gonna grab, if I don't know if the link, did they live stream your talk at the ViewConf last week?
They
Can
record. I'm not sure. They did record it, so it should be going online at
maybe
some point.
yeah, I think yeah, historically they do upload them to YouTube. I think it looks like it comes a bit after. So I'll be sure to put that in the notes here later as well. But you can of course um, follow the project on GitHub, follow Daniel on all the places. I think you're mostly in Blue Sky these days. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that link here so that folks can go ahead and follow you there. And again, thank you so very much for taking the time. Like, I can't believe you that that's been having just landed. And with my absolute fail of a time zone, I thank you
Oh
for
no,
your
no.
patience hanging out and waiting for me. You're like, hello, are we doing this thing or what? I can't believe I did that. My brain is fried, friends. This was a busy week in open source. It was a busy week in open source. I think we've had a week, but it's just fantastic to get to spend some time with you. Thank you, folks in the audience who tuned in. Thank you, Artem. Um, Artem say thanks to Daniel for Model Developers Community. And thank you so much to Knox and Joaquin and everyone who asked questions. Don't forget to go ahead and give Daniel a follow. Again, I'm going to share your main website again. And yeah, so what's coming up next for you, Daniel? Are you going to be speaking? You're going to be traveling, speaking at any other conferences again coming up soon?
The next few weeks are really busy, so I'm going
No
to
way.
Madrid. I'm in Madrid next week. Really looking forward to that. It's Mad View. The week after that, I'm in Lille for the Areo Dev Summit. The week after that, I'm at JS Nation in Amsterdam. So it's a crazy, crazy few weeks. But
Wow. Okay. Well, you have some rest to do as much as you can. Like, unpack the case and repack the case, sounds like you're, yeah. Wow.
conveniently, I'll
That's
get a little telegram reminder from my bot telling telling me to do that.
yeah, because you're gonna be changing climates quite a bit. That's yeah, going from Madrid to Amsterdam is the view tour. That's right, Oliver. Well, awesome. Hey, folks, if you're lucky enough to be going to any of these conferences, I feel like Daniel, you're one of those people that what you see is what you get. Like, I think, which is that's the best way to be. Like, I love that. So, say hi to Daniel, and Daniel, if you want to say hi to people, say hi to people too. Like, that's awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. You'll have to come back when for is release, so that maybe we can look through and maybe demo, that'll be great. I think folks will love that. But you are more than welcome anytime that you want to come by and tell us something. I'm thinking it would be great to set up like a new to Nux stream. Maybe let me think through that. I think that would be cool, just to see it through like the lens of someone who's never used the framework. We can
That
do
would
like
be amazing.
a zero to something, like build something quick. That'd be cool. That'd
That
be
would be
cool.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you being here. And thank you, everyone who tuned into this late start Open Source Friday. But I'm so grateful that you hung in there because this was a conversation I definitely did not want to miss. So thank you. Thank you, Daniel.
Likewise. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Well, go ahead and follow Daniel online. Follow Daniel on Blue Sky. I need to reboot my Blue Sky. It's like it's such a nice part of the world. I just neglect it and forget it. And only when I see mean things, I'm reminded that I need to be somewhere else. So go ahead and follow Daniel there. Daniel, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being here again. We'll see you next time. What a guy, huh? I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Just we are just so honored to have him be a part of the STARS program and active maintainer and active part of the GitHub open source community as a whole. Thank you, everyone who joined in today, for asking questions. Uh, Thank you for asking questions and having disagreements and still being awesome. Like this is it's just testament to how amazing this community is. So super grateful for all of you who were here, who took the time out of your Friday. Um, I'm gonna try and get back into the correct time zone, which is I don't think it's happening. It's this was a long week, but there were some really interesting news in open source. We're gonna release a download. I think it should be coming out soon. It should be coming out like a little bit after noon on Pacific time, and it's gonna be open source news aplenty. The GitHub Copilot chat now is on its way to becoming open source. The WSL news, Firefox coming to GitHub. So if you haven't subscribed to the GitHub YouTube channel, please do so that you don't miss those news of the week, which I think this week's download is about 89% open source news, which is my favorite type of download. So thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate your time. We will see you next week with another Open Source Friday. And stay awesome, Vue community, Nuxt community. Stay awesome. I know you will. Take care now.